Why did you ask me to accompany you, sir?
I needed an engineer.
Giorgio's an engineer.
An engineer I can trust.
She thinks I'm useless.
She's concerned for Michael and lacks the self-awareness to control her behavior in such an unsettled state. We are introducing ourselves to the future. You, Ensign Tilly, are a wonderful first impression.
Well, here we are, folks. Episode 2 of Star Trek Discovery's third season, Far From Home, written by Michelle Paradise, Jenny Lumet, and Alex Kurtzman, directed by Olatunde Osunsanmi. I'm Dan Gunther, and with me is Bruce Gibson, and we're here on Positively Trek, giving you our thoughts on this episode. So, Bruce, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well. I just woke up because I slept in. And I'm trying to remember this last episode of Discovery. And I do remember it because it was so good.
I was going to say, yeah, it's not very memorable, eh? It's kind of hard to... No.
Well, I just don't want to mix it up with any dreams that I was having of Star Trek or Discovery. And I don't want to mix those dreams in with the episode because it really could throw it off.
Oh, that's interesting. Do you often have Star Trek dreams? I'm curious now.
I don't remember most of my dreams, so I don't know, but I have had, of course, some dreams that were related around Star Trek, but I typically, gosh, I can't even believe I'm going to say this because it's like recorded out there for anybody I know to hear this, but I typically fall asleep to thinking about Star Trek. So I'm sure I'm dreaming it as I fall asleep because I'm thinking it. And a lot of times it's not so much I'm thinking of an episode. It's just more of I'm thinking expanding an episode or a book or tying a book into something or coming up with a new story idea. And then I fall asleep.
Just as a total aside, I was on a school trip back in high school many, many years ago. And I was reading the novel Imzadi at the time. And I remember I had only like 2 chapters left or whatever. And I was in my hotel room reading just some afternoon where we had some downtime. And I fell asleep while reading. And I finished the novel in my dream. And I remember at like dinner that night thinking, man, that novel took a really weird left turn at the end. And it's just, that was really strange. I don't know if I like how they wrapped that up. And then that night when I was in my room getting ready for bed, I was like, I don't remember reading any of this.
I remember you telling me that story before.
Oh, okay.
That is so funny.
I don't have a lot of stories.
No, as soon as you started talking about it, I was like, I think I remember you telling me this once. Yeah, that's really interesting how your mind works that way. You think you've done something or you remember something and it wasn't that. It was something you dreamt, It's crazy. But the other thing I fall asleep to, here's another thing that it's related to Star Trek, but I think about what if I somehow got ownership of the franchise and what would I do with it?
Ooh, that's cool. Yeah. Like a behind the scenes production side dream about Star Trek. I think I've had 1 or 2 of those as well. That's cool.
That would be my ultimate dream job at this point. I wouldn't want to be on a show. I wouldn't want to write a show because I don't know. I would just like to be in the business end of it.
Excellent. Well, as much fun as that would be, we're not here to dream about running our own Star Trek show because we've got one that other people are running that we need to talk about. So, yeah, Star Trek Discovery, Far From Home is the name of the episode. And after last week's focus on Burnham and her situation and meeting up with Book, this week we get to see what the Discovery folks are up to. So Saru and the rest of the crew. And the episode starts with a pretty big bang with Discovery crashing down on this icy planet, which, we don't really get the name of. The people that are there, we later learn, just call it the colony. So, yeah, this was impressive, this crash of Discovery. What did you think of that whole sequence?
I like the sequence because it reminded me of something we would see in one of the Kelvin Timeline movies. The way the ship was flying through and it crashes through an asteroid and the way it was dropping to the planet and the sound was just fading away. I was like, this feels like that cinematic not Discovery, but Kelvin Timeline movies to me. And I've felt that in a bunch of other Discovery episodes too. But I just remember at that moment thinking, again, this feels like a movie. It doesn't feel like your typical traditional TV shows that we had with other Star Trek. So I really enjoyed that sequence. When they crash landed on the planet, that to me looked a little too CGI-ish to me in a sense. Like it was fine, but I liked when they were out in space, that sequence better than the crashing on the planet.
Yeah, I thought this was really well done personally. Like, as far as feeling the danger and that stuff, I think when it was Detmer and Oshikun were yelling brace, 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 like that was really good to kind of jolt me into imagining being there and going through that. I thought that was all really well done. One thing that really stuck out to me after the whole crash is Saru as the captain. I felt like he was this commanding presence way more than we've gotten before. And I think like he's really growing into this role as the commanding officer of Discovery right now. I loved his little speech. You know, one of the things he says is people may be concerned about what's going on out there, but we can't focus on that right now. We have to focus in here. And, you know, really does a great job of establishing the priorities for the crew. And I thought his turn as captain was really interesting.
I did too. He's more confident than what he's been. And he is filling those big shoes, the captain's shoes and his own shoes better. But at the same time, he still has a gentleness to him. There's still that, and throughout the episode, he's very much a commanding figure, but he's not imposing. Still has a gentle way about him without being. It's not that it's weak or anything. It's just it's almost like the perfect captain for a Star Trek series, because it's about people's feelings and recognizing how others feel, but also being commanding and knowing how to impose what command decisions he needs to do on that situation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he does a really good job of walking that line between, you know, I'm looking to the points where he's interacting with Georgiou, for example,
yes,
and is able to kind of stand toe to toe with her in a way that he hasn't before undergoing the Vihari and losing his fear response and stuff. Then I'm contrasting that with his moments with Tilly, where he's being that warm, commanding officer. One of my favorite exchanges is where they're walking away from the ship and Tilly is kind of babbling a bit and she says, "Sorry, sir, I'm talking because I'm scared." And he turns to her and says, "I know. Keep talking, Ensign." There's something so heartwarming about that. And then right after that too, where Tilly's kind of questioning why she's on this mission, and Saru says to her, "We are introducing ourselves to the future. You, Ensign Tilly, are a wonderful first impression." And just the confidence that gives her, and the, like, you know, she immediately changes. She's immediately happier and more at ease, I think, just shows how good a commanding officer Saru is in that moment.
And that's that scene that I was thinking as I was talking through it. That one really stood out to me. As you're talking through it, it made me realize that how much of a mentor he is and how great he would be teaching at Starfleet Academy.
Yeah, absolutely. Giving all the students a kink in their neck because they have to crane their heads to look up at him. But right. Yeah. The other day when we were talking about this episode, you had said that there were some parts that got you a little choked up. Kind of surprising to me, this whole bit with Saru and Tilly actually got me choked up. I was starting to get a little choked up at the, you know, "You're a wonderful first impression," and just seeing that change that brought to Tilly. I'm curious, was that one of them, or is this a different scene for you?
No, that was one of them for sure. There was another one later, which I'll save.
Okay. Excellent. Let's talk a little bit. I do want to mention a lot of the characters in this episode, because I think each character that we see kind of gets a little bit to play with and some really interesting stuff. And one that surprised me, and a character that I kind of tend to forget about, is Commander Non, who joined the Discovery crew from the Enterprise last season. And Rachel Ancherl is now a main cast member, and we see her name in the opening credits, which is really cool. But we get a small scene with her where we learn why she joined the Discovery crew. And this was kind of something that I've always had in the back of my mind. She's not known Burnham or anybody for very long. Why would she go along with Discovery when she's from the Enterprise, besides, being a good actor who got a good job on a show called Star Trek Discovery.
Right.
But, for the character, why is she around? And we learn that it's because she feels a debt to the loss of Arium, which I thought was a really interesting bit of character motivation for her.
I did too. And it makes a lot of sense because when there's a void to fill and she sees that's available, she may go for it. And she had a chance to work with this crew. For all we know, that she felt more comfortable with this crew than her own. Like maybe she enjoyed working on the Enterprise, but she really had, there was some kind of connection with this crew. And what she was involved in that situation where Arium died, she does feel this, something needs to be done, something needs to help these people, and I can do it. And look, they've got this mission that they're going to the future, and this is why I'm out here. I'm out here to explore new things, and what better thing to do than to support this crew and go to the future. And I think it's a great character moment for her. It's a great reason. I mean, yeah, to your point, they'll probably find a way, hey, we like this character, let's work her into the show somehow. But it's just a great Starfleet way of doing it, because it's about, this is why we're out here. And I'm not tied to the ship. I'm tied to the missions, and there's a mission here and I want to be part of it. And yeah, I like that. And I think we're going to see a lot more development with her, with this crew, and somehow find how she fits in with certain characters as we go. And I'm excited about that.
Well, I'm just really glad that at no point in the show did she say yum yum, because...
Oh, that's one of my favorite lines.
I know. And shout out, by the way, to the Yum Yum podcast. The hosts of that podcast did take some issue with me not liking that line from last season of Discovery. So it's all in good fun. This is just a shout out to you guys.
There's a podcast called Yum Yum? Really?
Yes, the Yum Yum podcast, and it is a Star Trek Discovery podcast. Ryan and Rachel Slawinski, they're rewatching and breaking down episodes of Star Trek Discovery without having a breakdown themselves, is their little tagline.
Aww.
So
I like that. I like that name, Yum Yum. That's great.
I figured you'd like that.
That's great. Well, you mentioned earlier too about the credits, and I just wanted to point out, did you notice the logo this time?
Yes, that's right. I forgot about that. They did update the made the Star Trek part the old original series Star Trek logo. That was interesting.
And smaller.
Yeah, much smaller.
Yeah. So it's interesting that the previous episode was a rework of the first season and the second season episode, but just the Discovery part changed. The Star Trek part remained the same. And now in this episode, the Star Trek part changed and became smaller. I started to wonder, is the logo going to change every week? Like, it's just weird that they did it that way. But anyway, I was surprised to see that.
Yeah, it makes me, I feel like the first episode just wasn't their finalized look, and they decided to make one more change before this episode aired. I'm curious when the Blu-rays come out, what it's going to look like, if that logo is going to carry back over to the first episode as well. Because I remember Star Trek Enterprise, their third season coincidentally as well, they changed the name from Enterprise to Star Trek Enterprise. But the first two episodes of the season, it just said Enterprise at the start. And then in the third episode, it changed to Star Trek Enterprise. And then when the DVDs and Blu-rays came out, they had made it so that all of the episodes had that. So it was just like they just decided to change it at that point or something.
That's interesting. So all the episodes of season 3, they changed it, but they didn't go back to seasons 1 and 2, right? They still say Enterprise.
Right. Yeah. Seasons 1 and 2 still say Enterprise.
Okay, so here's just how lame I am. I see that logo, and then afterwards I start thinking about it. I was like, well, wait, that's really interesting, because in last week's episode, only the word Discovery changed. The Star Trek logo didn't change. And now both have changed. And I thought, is it a connection to the fact that, well, in the first episode, only Burnham was there, so she only represents half of Star Trek Discovery in this scenario, in this storyline, so they changed one part of the logo, and now that we get the other half of the storyline in with the crew, it changed the next part of the logo. I know it's a stretch, but I was like, is this some kind of artistic thing going on here?
I don't know that that's what they're thinking, but if that works for you, yeah, sure. Well, let's move on to Stamets and Culber. And last we saw at the end of last season, Stamets had been pretty gravely injured and was in sickbay, and we saw that Culber was putting him into a medically induced coma. And in this season, we've traveled to the 32nd century, and there's a lot more injuries thanks to this crash, and they need to free up the biobeds. So Stamets' recovery is kind of rushed by Culber. I gotta say, I love the interaction here between Stamets and Culber, and we really see kind of the old Culber back. He made a lot of like realizations at the end of last season that kind of got rushed and pushed through, and like, oh, now he's suddenly on Discovery and, you know, he wants to be back with Paul. And we definitely see that change in his character here and that kind of playfulness. I really enjoyed the back and forth between these two.
I did too, but it was a little off-putting for me at first because I was like, Culber, I'm not used to seeing you so happy and smiley and everything. It's been a while since I've seen you like this, and it took me a little while to get used to it. I kept thinking, like, when's he going to get mad at Paul? Which he does a little later, which I enjoy too, but not like really mad. Just more like, Paul, what are you doing? Come on, like just behave and listen to me.
We've got to get you out of there and, you know, safe and sound so that I can kill you.
Right. I'm glad that he has reached this point, that he's back to his old self and he's gotten through what he went through in season 2. But, you know, he also, you know, everything's a learning experience in life. And so whatever he discovered about himself during that time, he may be happier now than he was even before season 2 and season 1. So yeah, it was great to see this. I like the interplay of the two. And I like Stamets, you know, determined that he's not going to let his health get in the way. And I kept wanting to just tell him, you know, you just need to sit down, let everybody else do their jobs and help you. You know, I wish he would just let people help him.
Yeah, he has some moments in this episode where I just kind of want to give him a bit of a shake. And like, you know, he's not indestructible. He's just recovered from pretty horrific injuries and he's really pushing himself. And we also have his interactions with Jet Reno, and Jet has injured her back, so she can't really do a lot, but she's also trying to tell Paul, you know, you're just been injured as well, and you can't really do a lot. But like we said, he's kind of taking on a lot and crawling into Jeffrey's tubes when he probably shouldn't be. And it's a little bit of a martyr complex or something going on with him here.
Yeah, I really felt bad for him in that Jeffrey's tube. I was just thinking, like, they need to get him out of there. Somebody else go in there, you know? I mean, because really what he didn't look all that complicated. It looks like I could do that. If Jet Reno's telling me, yeah, just go in there and pull that out and put this in, I could have done that. You know, I mean, you could have got any ensign or anybody to go in there and do that.
Yeah, somebody who's not bleeding all over the floor of the Jeffries tube.
Yeah,
you know,
I really felt bad for him. It's like he was in a lot of pain. I mean, I was feeling the pain. That's why I was finding that scene a little bit uncomfortable. But Jet Reno, oh my gosh. I mean, just her little lines here and there and her attitude. And, you know, here she is. She's also injured, not feeling well. Her back hurts. And she's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that because my back hurts. You know, I mean, I'm the opposite of you, Paul. You know, you want to push yourself to limits that you probably shouldn't do that aren't healthy to you. But I'm just going to sit right here. I'm going to open up this little cabinet, little drawer thing here in engineering. And what was that thing she was sitting on? I guess it looked like a big like toolkit to me.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, some kind of mobile toolkit or something. But yeah, she's made herself comfortable. She knows what's up. She knows what her body needs. And
right.
Yeah, no, that was good. I really loved Jet in this. I mean, Tig Notaro is one of my favorite people, period. So having her in Star Trek just makes me so happy. And yeah, she got some great lines in this one. I really enjoyed her here.
Yeah. And my other favorite character is Jean. Jean just was incredible.
I love that. So yeah, Jean is cleaning up the spore chamber where Leland last season was dispatched by Giorgio, let's say. Reno is referring to him, says, so unless Hazmat over here is going to be helping after he cleans up aisle 5, he says, my name's Gene, actually. Yeah, I've already forgotten that. Which on one level is really funny. But on another level, I'm like, this dude volunteered to come to the future and help out Burnham and all that stuff too. Like, lower deckers unite. This is the Boimler of Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah. That poor guy, I hadn't thought about he made the decision to go in the future and he's just, scooping up dead Leland goop, and he's probably going, why did I agree to this? I can't go back.
Yeah.
And even talk about Leland goop, when Tilly saw Giorgio and said, you got a little bit of Leland there on your shoe.
Absolutely. Well, actually, let's talk about Giorgio then, because, one more Jet Reno line. Sorry, I just got to get this in here without any proper segue or anything. But at the very end, of course, when Paul says to her, Jet, thanks for nothing. And she replies, back at you, Bobcat. Culber says, Bobcat? I don't know. I'm on drugs. I love this character. She's ridiculous.
I know. She's great. And it's in her personality for sure. I mean, I was telling you before the show, like, I don't think she's a great actress, but just her personality and the fact that they make her into an engineer is great, because I've worked with engineers that are just kind of, they're like that. They're like, it's just me. I'm doing my job. It is what it is. And that's how she is.
Yeah. Tig Notaro, definitely more of a comedian than an actor, but still, I just love that she's on the show. And this character, I think, is perfect for her personally. Yeah. So, yeah. But yeah, Giorgio. So this is a character who's going to be a problem, more so than she's already been a problem. I definitely see them setting up her being an issue. And like I said, Saru does go toe to toe with her, but it's close a couple times, right? Like, she is going to be challenging for Saru to be able to command, I think.
I have to say this, Dan. Giorgio, when she first appeared on screen, I was like, oh yeah, there's Giorgio. She's here. Mere Giorgio. And I'm just like, oh gosh. I mean, am I going to really like her being here? Because she's just going to disrupt things and just be a problem. And I don't know how I feel about this, but I have to admit something. I think this is one of my favorite Giorgio episodes.
Oh, wow, really?
I loved her in this episode. I think it's just because she is different from everybody else. Now I think about it, one of the things I liked on TNG was the introduction of Ensign Rowe. And I know I've talked to some people who don't like Ensign Rowe, but I liked Ensign Rowe because everybody in the Enterprise, our main cast, for the most part, they're good Samaritans. They're all good Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and they're almost perfect in a way. Then when Ensign Rowe showed up, she had an edge to her, and I like that. She added just a little spice to the cast for me. And I almost feel that way about Giorgio now, because in the sense, everybody is... They're good Boy Scout, Girl Scouts on this ship. They all care about one another. And there's somebody there that's like, I don't know if I really care about you people. I mean, I do, but I won't admit it. But anyway, and she's just adding that bit of spice. And just her fight scenes in this, I always love it to see Michelle Yeoh fighting. I mean, her skills are just perfect. And I just love her because she's so complex. Because at 1 minute, it's like, I'm thinking she's an emperor from the Empire. And she's here, but at the same time, she does seem to care. There's a good peace side to her, especially when we see the saloon fight and such, and she puts the gun to Saru's head, and then she just turns it and puts it down. Like, he goes, we don't do that. And she's like, okay, like, I'll play your by your rules. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know why. I just really loved her in this episode.
Yeah, I did I enjoy that aspect of her character for sure. She did save Saru and Tilly and the remaining Corridanites in the bar there. I do like that even when she's standing there and a gun's pointed at her head, she's in command of the situation. That's the one thing that from that scene that I absolutely loved, was she's like, he's going to get you killed.
Right.
Now you're supposed to ask why. And then she's just like totally in command of the situation, and of course turns the tables on Zara. You know, she's a little bit of an agent of chaos in all of this as well, because like you said, that bit at the end where she for a moment trains the gun on Saru and then turns it around. That's where I was like, okay, she's going to be trouble.
Yeah.
Like Saru's really walking a fine line, riding herd on her, because yeeks, I don't know where this is going to go. I feel like she's going to have a bit of an arc over the course of the season. And, you know, of course, she's going to be the lead in Star Trek Section 31 at some point. So I'm curious, like, what in this season is going to be setting her up for that? Because we know the original idea for Section 31 was it was going to start filming right at the end of Discovery Season 3. So I think whatever they came up with for her character for this season is setting her up for that. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious what her arc is going to be over the season.
Well, and they have to be very careful with her. Because as much as I enjoyed her in this episode, yeah, I can see where she would start to drive me crazy, and I really could get tired of her after a while. Because if she's causing mischief and issues for this crew and ruining missions for them, I'm going to really start to hate this character.
Yeah.
And you know, she's not a Starfleet character. Like, if she was a Starfleet officer doing these things, I wouldn't like this character, because I don't understand why Starfleet would have an officer like this. That being said, she is part of Section 31, which is part of the Federation and kind of Starfleet, whatever. And even that bothers me a little, that we would bring somebody who ran this empire and killed thousands or millions of people. Oh, we're going to have her help on these secret missions. It's like,
yeah,
it's that still kind of bothers me, but that's why I say I almost get this feeling that there's a good side to her. And I feel like Burnham has brought that out of her. And, you know, who knows what her story was and how she became emperor and why, but maybe it was just the circumstance. And now that she doesn't have to do that anymore, she can be the good person that she really could have been. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think any path for redemption for her is going to be through Burnham. And I think we get hints of that as well with, you know, her reaction to seeing Burnham at the end when Burnham shows up and rescues the Discovery. We get that reunion with Burnham at the end, and just the looks on Giorgio's face, and combined with, you know, the concern she has at the beginning for getting communications up because we have no way to contact Michael. Like, that's definitely the route that whatever redemption she has is going to take, I think.
Well, I watched Lost in Space, not so much the old series, I've seen that, but the newer series, and, you know, Dr. Smith drives me crazy. And Giorgio could be the Dr. Smith of this series. You know, hopefully doesn't drive me as much crazy as Dr. Smith does.
So yeah, we talked a little bit about, you know, the rescue of Discovery at the end by Burnham, which, you know, that's pretty cool that she's been waiting a year, so not 1,000 years, thankfully, like they were fearing might be the case, but still, it's been a year. We see Burnham. She looks a lot different. I feel like next episode is going to be the kind of filling in of that year of what happened while Burnham was waiting for Discovery, because it seems like a lot has happened. I'm curious to see what the evolution of her relationship with Book is at this point. I know in the trailers we've seen her, you know, sitting, waiting for messages from Discovery as her hair gets longer, kind of thing. So I feel like that's what we're going to get in the next episode. This episode, there's some interesting little revelations tying, I think, what's going on to what we've seen already in the Short Treks episode Calypso. And this is going to be something that I keep coming back to because I'm curious how they're going to link everything together. But in that episode, Kraft calls the Federation the Vidraish. And in this episode, we get Zara calling the Federation the Vidraish as well. So the more hints we get, the more I think we're in that time period that we saw in Calypso, or somewhere near it anyway.
And you don't think that Calypso could be 1,000 years past this point going forward?
I don't think so. I think because it's that Vidraish reference that I'm like, okay, I think they're trying to establish that we're close to where Calypso is. And I outlined a theory a while ago as to how this will all link together. This is still kind of my theory. I might have to amend this as we go along, but I feel like the Section 31 series is going to be back in the 23rd century with Georgiou. I think she's going to somehow get back there, but the Discovery crew won't. My guess is she's going to somehow use Discovery to go back in time, back to the 23rd century, and then she's going to hide the Discovery somewhere for 1,000 years for it to get back to where the Discovery crew is now. Maybe a bit of a leap, just a lot of guesswork there, but that's my current theory that I have going on right now, because we know from that the ship has been waiting for almost 1,000 years, is what it says. And it has evolved in that time to become an artificial intelligence. So I think Discovery, because it has the sphere data in its computers with all the AI research and stuff, is going to evolve a personality while it sits in this nebula waiting for 1,000 years. That's my guess.
Love that. Can we just go ahead and make that happen?
If I had any power to, I totally would. And maybe that's the answer, but maybe they've come up with something completely different too. But unlike some people on the internet, I don't think they're going to forget Calypso. I think these little references, I think they have this kind of mapped out how they're going to link it together. I don't think it's something they're just going to drop.
No, I don't think they'll forget Calypso either. No. And by the way, I think when they made Calypso, they at least had an idea of where they were going with Discovery to make sure that this would also work with it. I like that idea because if Georgiou somehow uses Discovery to go back in time, and then, as you said, kind of puts Discovery, hides it somewhere, so it is sitting there for about 1,000 years, so that she knows that the crew's abandoned in the future because she left with the ship, but that's okay, because then they'll find it's not a duplicate Discovery, but almost feels that way, because if that abandoned ship is out there right now, then there's two Discoveries, until she goes back in time with the one Discovery and the other Discovery's there. It's so confusing. Timey-wimey stuff drives me crazy.
Well, I guess with that said, do you have any kind of final thoughts and maybe a rating for this episode that you'd like to share with us?
Similar to last week's episode, I like this because it stayed with the crew. I mean, there was different little storylines as opposed to last week's where it just followed Burnham the whole time. But it kind of still felt that way to me. It's staying with the crew situation. And I'm glad they did these two episodes individually, that it wasn't seeing Burnham doing something, then we go back to see what the crew's dealing with, and then back to Burnham, and we're in this volleying back and forth. And the way we saw this end makes sense as to why they wouldn't have done it that way, because Discovery doesn't show up until a year after Burnham arrived into the future, which, by the way, that was my big choke up moment, was the ending. When Burnham showed up on the view screen and she's been found and she's found them, I was like, no, this is so wonderful. They're all back together. And I just kept thinking, what has she been through the last year? Which I'm hoping that's what the next episode is really going to focus on, is what she's gone through the last year. But yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. I love the Western feel of the saloon area. And, I know Star Trek, this is not the Star Trek thing for me to say, but I did enjoy the violence. Okay. I mean, I enjoyed the fight scenes with Georgiou and even Tilly using the bottle to knock that guy out, and just seeing them in that situation felt very much like a Western. So that was fun. And just seeing the bits of planet or rocks or boulders floating in the atmosphere, looking like a alien type planet, was really cool. So I love the visuals. There's so much in this. I know I'm missing something. That's why I'm stretching this on, because after a while I'm going to be like, oh, I should have mentioned about blah, 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 blah. But I love the whole thing. I feel like Tilly right now. I could just keep talking and talking and whatever. So anyway, I will say that I give this episode a big, this is not going to sound good, a big pile of Leland.
Ooh.
Meaning it's got a lot of weight to it.
Okay.
I don't know. Right. That's a stretch. I would say like a 4.5 out of 5. No, a 4 out of 5 gunslinging stuff. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I really enjoyed this episode as well. I think, following the Discovery crew and seeing what they've been up to and their experiences was a really good episode. And not revealing Burnham until the very end, I think, was a good choice. Just like I think not showing Discovery at all in the first episode was a good choice. One thing we didn't talk about, that I'm just looking at my notes now, Detmer. What is up with her?
Yes.
What's going on with Detmer?
I'm glad you mentioned this because I saw you discussing this on Twitter. I don't know. I wanted to go back to season 2. Wasn't there a situation? I don't know, and I may not be remembering this correctly, but I thought maybe there was something we saw in season 2, very brief, where something affected her, like her implant. I don't, and maybe not, but I really wanted to go back, and I thought, well, I can't like comb through all those episodes right now, but I don't know. I kept thinking that there was something earlier that we saw, and I don't know if this is also related to Control, because Control still exists and on the ship in some manner, and made me wonder too if this is their way of still working Control into the storyline.
Yeah, I'm wondering if some bit of Control that was in Leland has gotten into the ship somehow, and
Right.
somehow gotten into Detmer or something. Yeah, I'm really not sure what to think of this whole storyline. It's obvious they're setting something up. I'm getting, and the reason why I think of Control is I'm definitely getting Arium vibes from what happened to her last season from this. So yeah, I don't know what's going on with her, but it's definitely chilling to see her reacting the way she does and stuff. So I hope that gets sorted soon. I really like Kayla.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm confusing what happened to Arium with Detmer in this, because I mean, I remember what happened with Arium, but yeah, there's just something in the back of my mind. It's like, but didn't we see something brief happen to her at some point? But again, maybe that was in my dreams, like you did with Imzadi.
Yeah. But yeah, so the episode as a whole, I really enjoyed it. Giorgio, I think you made some really good points, and I'm really curious what her arc is going to be in this season. Saru, I'm just like, he may be turning into one of my favorite captains. Like, he's perfect in this role. And all of the characters just have these moments that come together to make this a really interesting episode. I love, as people know from hearing me speak, I love when shows focus on the characters and really have that drive forward what's going on. So yeah, this episode was just top notch in my opinion. So I think I would give it one nice long session in the cellular regenerator. You don't have to crawl in Jeffrey's tubes. You're just lying there getting fixed.
That's a much better rating system than mine. That was really good, Dan. And to your point about the characters, I do want to point out the other thing I liked about this episode is that they're utilizing the bridge crew more, that cast is getting more to do. We're not just seeing them at their stations. We're getting to see them interact more and do other things on the ship. And so I'm enjoying that.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so many great little moments with everybody in this episode. Like one that we didn't mention, but right after they crash, and then Ooshikun initiates a spontaneous applause on the bridge for Kayla's landing. Like, just little moments like that I'm like, I love this crew. They're gelling together now that we're past Lorca, now that we've had the healing with Pike, they've really come together as a crew, and I love that. Yeah,
I mean, now that you mention that, this is the first season that we're going to get that it really is the Discovery crew. It's not somebody from the Mirror Universe who's undercover and now they can be themselves, and it's not like they're being commanded by somebody from another starship. It's them. This is their moment now.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, we'd love to hear what everyone out there thinks, so please tweet to us at PositivelyTrek on Twitter. You can also email us positivelytrek@gmail.com. We've also got our Facebook discussion group. Just search for Positively Trek on Facebook. We'd love to have you join. Always really great discussions and memes and all kinds of stuff being posted there. So, we'd love to grow that community. You can find me on Twitter at Kertrats. That's KERTRATS. And on youtube.com/Kertrats Productions. And Bruce?
I'm on Twitter at Admiral_Rex. That's Admiral with the other line, and then Rex. And I'm also occasionally on the Star Wars Report. And you know what, folks? I can't tell you when I'm going to be on the Star Wars Report because sometimes it changes. For example, we were supposed to record this week and then it got canceled. So I don't even know if I'll be asked to be on next week. So that's why I say occasionally I'm on the Star Wars Report.
Well, thank you so much for listening this week. We'll be back next week, of course, with another episode of Discovery, and we'll have our flagship show in the meantime, plus a book club episode coming later this week. So keep your eyes out for that. We've got a special one for you with special guest Kirsten Beyer. So you won't want to miss that. So until the next episode, Back at you, Bobcat.